In this video, we're going to talk about what the jobs are of a post-chorus. A post-chorus is kind of interesting because it's basically the most rare of the more mainstream song sections. When you take verses, pre-choruses, choruses, bridges, and post-choruses, which are probably the main components you have of basically every song, not including an intro and an outro, or even including an intro or outro, the most rare one of those sections is almost definitely the post-chorus. The only competition it really has is something like a chorus 2 when it comes to mainstream song sections. In fact, by any genre that's not pop music, the post-chorus is really almost never used, seemingly, or very, very rarely used. It seems to be used by far the most in pop music, which presents an opportunity for those of us who write music that isn't exactly pop music, because maybe we can utilize things that we learned from what pop music did with the post-chorus, but take it in a new direction that's maybe a little less poppy. But let's talk about what the job is of a post-chorus. I think if we were to boil down what the job of a post-chorus was into one very, very simple idea, it would really be that it is to keep the party going. It is meant to be sort of like an after party to the chorus, or an encore for the chorus. If you think of, say, an encore that maybe your favorite artist does, where the show seems to be done, except that they didn't play like their biggest hit song, so we all know they're coming back out. Why do we do that charade anymore? But anyway, we know that there's a little bit more of a concert coming. It feels like it's about over, right? The whole concert was great, but then there's just a little bit more to sort of keep that concert party going before it's really over. And that's sort of what a post-chorus is for a chorus. And like an encore or like an after party, the main point of those things is somewhat to keep the energy of what came before it going for a little longer, right? If you go to an after party, usually the idea is, hey, I'm still having fun hanging out with my friends or my coworkers or whoever they are. I kind of want to do it for a little bit longer. I'm not quite ready to go home yet. This has been a good time. Let's keep it going. And in the same way, an encore at the end of a concert is the same exact idea, right? This concert has been great. People keep clapping, saying, yeah, come back out, sing more songs. So sure enough, they keep the party going. They keep that energy going. In fact, like I mentioned before, oftentimes they'll save their best song or most popular song or one of their most popular songs for that encore to really end it on a high note, make sure that that energy really is kept up. So overall, a post-chorus should generally maintain the same level of energy as a chorus. So if you think of song sections generally having a certain energy level where you could maybe rate sort of like a topography map of just how much energy a section has, generally speaking, your first verse, for example, will usually be probably the least energetic part of a song. Maybe the last verse will be the least energetic. If you have 3 verses, that's pretty common. But very often the first verse takes that role, and then the choruses tend to be energy peaks, right? Maybe the first chorus isn't the biggest peak of the entire song, but a chorus is always pretty much going to peak more so than a verse. So in general, you have your first verse, and then the energy goes up for the pre-chorus, and then the energy goes up even again for the chorus, and then it goes back down for the verse, and then it goes back up for the pre-chorus, and then it goes up again to the next chorus, and then sometimes the bridge goes down or up or whatever. But whenever it comes to a post-chorus, usually whatever that energy level of the chorus is, it's not going to go down. It might go up, but it's usually going to stay about the same. But if anything, it's going to go up, and it should go up. And usually also something that a post-chorus will do is add a new hook to the song. So thinking practically about it, and especially when thinking of post-choruses in light of how they're most often utilized, which is in the context of pop music, this makes a lot of sense because pop music is extraordinarily based on hooks. Almost everything is about giving you a new hook and trying to make sure that they don't lose the attention of a listener who maybe has a short attention span, which is why pop music very often will have very short song sections and go from one section to the next very quickly, right? There'll be a short first verse into a short pre-chorus into the chorus, and it tries to get to the chorus within 30 seconds of the beginning of the song. And then it doesn't stop there and go back to a verse. No, instead they give you yet another song section in the form of a post-chorus. And because it's a new song section, that's an opportunity for a new hook. And often for a post-chorus, you will keep the same exact chord progression that you had for the chorus. The only difference is you will change up what the hook is. And usually if you do have lyrics, you will have fewer lyrics and they will be extra simplified. It might be one line repeated, or something very often done, especially in the context of pop music, is that is the point where the synth will drop and there will be a synth hook rather than the vocal hook that you probably had in the chorus. But if you do have lyrics, almost always it's going to be very, very simple. For example, Charlie Puth's Attention is just, what are you doing to me? What are you doing, ah? Over and over again. Or in Ed Sheeran's Shape of You, it just says, I'm in love with your body over and over again, and then that ooh ah part. So those are both very simple hooks. So the lyrical content of a post-chorus is almost definitely extraordinarily simple. And usually that lyrical content will also hammer home one of the main points of the song or one of the main ideas of the song, because it's repeated over and over. And repetition indicates to a listener or to a reader in the context of a book or poetry, repetition in general is just something that communicates to somebody consuming any form of art that, hey, this thing is important. So in the case of Ed Sheeran's Shape of You, the whole idea is about being in love with the shape of you. So naturally, it makes sense that he would be talking about being in love with the person's body when we are in the post-chorus. Or in Charlie Puth's Attention, it's all about this idea of you just want attention. You're not actually going to ever be with me. You just want my attention. So it makes sense that the post-chorus revolves around this. What are you doing to me? What are you doing? Because you're not willing to be with me. You just want attention. And that's a pretty cruel thing to do. So a final minor tip on using a post-chorus. If you do decide to use a post-chorus, and for what it's worth, like pretty much any other song section, you shouldn't just mindlessly always do a post-chorus. And you also shouldn't just take for granted that you should never use a post-chorus. Even if you don't write pop music, which I don't write pop music either, that doesn't mean that we cannot utilize this song section or the basic ideas of a post-chorus. And of course, I don't mean to imply that only pop music uses post-choruses. Of course, that's not true. That just happens to be the overwhelmingly most common usage of post-choruses right now for whatever reason. And other genres of music, depending on which one, of course, some use them more than others, but most other genres of music use it very, very little compared to how often pop music uses it. So if you do utilize a post-chorus, something that might be smart to keep the song more interesting is to only introduce the post-chorus after the second chorus. So for example, assuming a very basic song structure of verse, pre-chorus, chorus, in that case, if you go verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, don't go into the post-chorus the first time, go into verse 2, then pre-chorus, then chorus, and then do the post-chorus. That way, the second chorus has that added boost of, this is not the first time we've heard this chorus, right? I've heard this before, but there's a bonus part at the end that I hadn't heard the first time. That also will help to separate out your post-chorus from your chorus in case it is a little vague where the chorus starts and ends and where the post-chorus starts and ends. But usually a good indication is if there is what seems like maybe sort of a part of a chorus that only happens the second time around or isn't at the end of every single chorus. Just because post-choruses tend to be light on lyrics does not mean that the lyrics of the post-chorus aren't important. And it certainly doesn't mean that the lyrics of the rest of your song aren't important. So if you're interested in making lyric writing easier for yourself, be sure to check out my free guide on the 6-step lyric writing checklist that I use that takes you all the way from the very beginnings, coming up with lyric ideas all the way through to a song that you can be proud of and lyrics that you can be proud of. Because the reality is that a lot of people tend to skip a lot of steps, and that's why lyric writing is so hard for them. And of course, lyric writing is going to be hard if we stare at a blank page and say, time to write lyrics, because we might not even know what the song is about yet, or we haven't fleshed out the storyline of it, or we haven't done any background development work for it, and then we expect ourselves to write lyrics right away, where we might even require ourselves to like match syllables and all that. That's asking way too much from ourselves and sets ourselves up to fail. And I don't know about you, but to me, lyric writing is super important to the point that I utilize something that I like to call the frame test. And the basic idea is, hey, are these lyrics good enough that if you put them in a frame and put them on the wall, they could pass as good poetry? Because the reality is that sometimes A really good melody or interesting music, cool guitar riffs can all sort of cover up the fact that the lyrics aren't really that good or maybe a little lackluster. So a great way to make sure we don't use music as a crutch is to see and be honest with ourselves about, hey, this lyric that I have, is it good enough that if it was just put on the wall, somebody would read it and be like, oh, wow, that's really good. That's really interesting. Or would it be something like WAP, which would be disgraceful on a wall? And is disgraceful even not on a wall. But besides that, we want our lyrics to be something that we can be proud of, something that holds their own and still is good even without the context of the music. We want the music and the lyrics to both be good and then come together and make both of them even better. We don't want to utilize one as a crutch for the other. So if you're with me on that and are interested in also having lyrics you can be proud of, be sure to check out that free guide, link in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll talk to you in the next one.